Okay, so it's Hellhound here, back again with another Chug review, and this time it's a figure from the Days of Universe, and quite an interesting figure I think, and that is Acid Storm. Now this mould was originally released under the Classics banner as Starscream, deluxe size Starscream, and that was one of only, I think there might have only been the 3 Decepticons released as part of Classics, which was Starscream, a repaint as Skywarp, and Megatron, possibly. Anyhow, so as I say, it was repainted into Skywarp, but there was no Thundercracker. Instead, the third use of the mould was Acid Storm, and I believe this is loosely based on a green version of the Seeker that appears in the Arrival from Cybertron cartoon. Now I think this mould is really good. It's shows its age a bit now. I think it's quite simple, and it's pretty blocky, but it does a lot of things really well. One of which is, from most angles, it's a really good representation of a F-15. And I think it's actually meant to be an F-15 Strike Eagle, which is an F-15E or something similar, because there's some moulded detail, if I take the weapon off, sort of here, which is sort of to evoke conformable fuel tanks, which is something that an F-15E does, and it's a 2-seater version of the jet. It looks pretty good from that angle. Alright, from that angle. It's only really, if you look at it from the front, there's this gaping hole on the bottom, and on the bottom, maybe you turn it upside down, of course you can see all of the robot bits and bobs, but most angles it looks like what it is, which is and very accurate as well. And of course most modern style vehicles draw elements from various different vehicles, so that there's no copyright infringement. I really like the colour scheme. I like that it was updated to show something not dissimilar to what you might see on the real aircraft, I suppose. And I like that sort of thing in my my Transformers. I'm one of the few people, I reckon, that really like the original Masterpiece version of Starscream, because it was in a pretty accurate, if slightly boring, sort of olive drab colour scheme with lots of little stencils and things like you find on the real aircraft. Anyway, so it looks good. It looks good, and it's nice and easy to transform. Oh, before we do, fans on the what will be the robot's chest just flip out to become undercarriage, which I think is a nice little touch. So let's take the null rays off and get that stiff and give them a transformation. So first of all, flip the wings up like so. Pull the rear of the jet out. They're going to be the legs. The tail fins you can just spin round like so, and then flip the other fins up. There are little indentations and posts that will allow you to tab it in. Flip the feet down. Separate the legs, and then a large part of this back will flip out. So if you sort of put opposing force on the underside of the nose cone and the top of the air intake there, you can lift that out. Flip out what will be the arms, and this is one of the best bits I think. So unclip the canopy, swivel it round like so, and then that all folds down and compresses to get that classic Seeker chest, and fold the nose behind the head. Flip out the fists, and then you can put him back on camera. Add the null rays. Now, one of the things that's really noticeable is he's quite stiff. I think this is the second or third use of the mould, which is not something that can be said for most iterations of this toy, it's usually pretty loose because it's just been used so often. Two versions of Starscream in the West, Skywarp, Thundercracker, Acid Storm. I think there's been a few BotCon exclusive versions of sort of solid colours, Sunstorm and the like. It was remoulded into the 3 cone heads, and of course you got all the Japanese releases as well. And I think they did revise the mould at some point, possibly the second version of Starscream, which the original Classics one had the right colours, but not necessarily in the right order compared to what you'd expect from a recreation of G1 Starscream. And then when it was re-released, I think possibly as part of Generations or Hunt for the Decepticons or something, it was revised at that point. Anyhow, it really, I mean, forgive the dust, but it really looks the part. It looks like what you want a Seeker to look like. And I think, again, like most of the Chug figures of any period, they stand up really well. But it does have some drawbacks. One is the wings are always in the way of whatever you're trying to do. You can get some decent poses from the arms, but it is restricted because of the size of the null rays and the wings. Same with the head. It does move, it swivels, but there's some restriction because of how the nose cone transforms. So what have you got? So you've got that swivel head, you've got backwards and forwards on the shoulder and a swivel. You've got a 90-degree bend on the elbow, but it's a bit restricted, and you know, if it's straight it just looks like the side of the aircraft hanging there. You have got ball joints, but it is restricted front and back. Not too bad on the front. On the leg, can do the splits. You've got a 90-degree bend on the knee, and I suppose depending on how well the joints are holding up, you can sort of get a bit of something out of the ankles. So yeah, Acid Storm, I like him. I think he holds up really well, and I'm going to give him, well, I reckon it's a 3 for the mould, really. And actually, do you know what? I'm going to give him a 3 because I really like the colour scheme, and I think it's just a lot of fun to do something ever so slightly different with the Seekers. And for people that are interested in scale, yeah, I know it's a small aircraft toy in same size as a blooming Mini or something if you've got the right range of Transformers. But if I'm going to go for scale, I'd rather them all be deluxes. That suits me perfectly fine. So it's a 3 from me.